This week on D Space Pride, a gay Star Trek podcast, we welcome the host of the Treksperts Quiz podcast, talk about the 30th anniversary of Deep Space Nine, the finale of Prodigy, and finally head over to Deanna's office to talk about what's going on in our personal lives. Thanks for joining us. Mike.
Hey, Johnson. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy 2023. How are you doing this year?
This year is going really well so far, I think.
Any big accomplishments so far over the past week?
I've run 4 times this week already. So I'm getting back into running. I have...
Was it marathon again that you're running?
Marathon is in June, yes.
Yeah, June.
So a mere 5 months away. So yeah, getting back into running, changing up my diet a little bit, cutting out a lot of sugar, which also means cutting down on alcohol and, well, specifically wine, except for special occasions.
I think about carbs all the time. Do you think about carbs all the time?
I don't think. I think about processed sugar more. I don't worry about it carbs. I think of actual sugar as being like
it's all carbs. It's all
sure, yeah. But I think of like sugar, like no sugar in my coffee. No,
I use Splenda now, and I'll use real sugar if I really want to treat. But now I use Splenda.
So I'm just trying to get my mind wrapped around running and eating healthier, and and I'm doing more intermittent fasting as well. So
look at you. That means like no dinners at like 9 p.m. usually.
No, it does. But my fasting is like 16 hours between like 9 p.m. and 1 p.m. 9 p.m. at night to 1 p.m. Except for coffee in the morning.
Sure.
So that's it.
So no breakfast.
No breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That makes
no
sense.
breakfast.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're communing with your body. You're like,
I am.
Mind to body, yes.
I've it's going to be a crazy year, a lot going on. So I am trying to get myself in the right mind space for all that's coming this year. So, yeah,
cool.
How about you? How's your 2023 been so far?
I've just been trying to survive. Like, survival is the baseline to which I'm trying to get back to, because I got sick after Christmas. It was a cold. I had the worst sore throat right after Christmas. It was really bad. I thought I had strep. They tested me for strep. They're like, you don't have strep. It's a cold. And then I got a really bad sinus infection. And then I got pink eye on New Year's Eve. I woke up on New Year's Eve and my eye was like oozing. And I was like, this doesn't look good. And then I went to urgent care and then gave me drops. And so I was like, there was like things oozing out of all these orifices. So
that sounds lovely.
Yeah, so I had like 2 types of antibiotics. I had steroids. I'm better now, but it was a dark time.
It was a dark time.
Yes. But yes, things are better. So yes, I'm just trying to get back to baseline, literally. So it's literally just about survival. But hey, usually when people ask me, what's your goal for the next year? I'm like, I just want to try and make it, just want to stay alive. So I'm achieving my goal so far. So yeah.
Very good. Well, you were also too sick for us to invite out to dinner on New Year's Eve.
I know. I canceled I was supposed to like go to like see some friends and see
right,
kids.
Yeah.
But that's when I had pink eye. I was like, I can give all your children pink eye, but I'm not going to do that out of consideration because I love children, which is false. But I'm not going to do that to my friends. So yeah, I just ended up, I didn't even like watch like the ball drop or the countdown because I was like, whatever. So I was like, I think I was like binge watching The Orville at like midnight or something. So not to get into off topic, but I finished all 3 seasons of The Orville in like
Yes.
2 weeks. So yes, that can be another separate discussion.
Yes, we'll save that for later this month.
Yeah,
because you knew about our little foible with our restaurant canceling at the last minute, like 4 hours before our dinner reservations on New Year's Eve. And then they were blaming it on us. And actually, we found out our neighbor actually knows like the manager over there. So he's actually going to say something to them. But I'm actually never going to go there. Like they're on my blacklist now. Like,
okay. Well, you're free to hold grudges. That's one way to live.
I will. I do hold grudges like that. Yeah.
You do you. I empower you to live your life the way you want. So.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate your permission here.
Of course. Well, we do have a special episode because we do have a guest with us. Mike, do you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah. So recently, if you haven't seen our Instagram stories lately, we were the first contestants on the part 2 of season 1. Johnson has these codes for this. What is it? Season 1B?
Season 1B.
Season 1B of the Treksperts Quiz. And the host, Davey Willett, is joining us today live from the future, meaning tomorrow morning in Australia. So welcome, Davey. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I can tell you that the future looks bright and amazing. You've got so much to look forward to.
And Johnson is still alive in the future as far as you know, right?
Apparently.
Hopefully. As far as I know, but I was just thinking then, Johnson, that, look, your description of things oozing in orifices probably sounds like some of the New Year's I had in my 20s. But anyway.
Well, and also probably a New Year's that he wishes he had. Although
maybe
in a different way, not in the way that was so described. But it's great to have you on our podcast. We had a lot of fun recording last month with you. And so we thought it'd be really cool to have you jump on with us and learn more about you and your Star Trek journey and your podcast journey. And talk about all the stuff that we're going to talk about this week. So,
and I'm sure this episode is going to get as many listens as our Will Wheaton episode. Definitely.
Yes,
Look,
you are.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I thought, what a coup for you guys. Will Wheaton and now me. I mean,
I know.
Hopefully the internet can handle it.
I hope so. And hopefully it'll lead us to many more famous people coming on this podcast. So,
oh my God. Mike is like trying really hard. He really wants Wilson Cruz. I'm like, sure.
So do I. Oh my God.
Yes.
Have him on as a contestant. I feel like he doesn't know anything. I feel he'd be like, hey, I have no idea.
No, he can just he can just come on and keep score or something like that. But like, I feel like I could have a chance because I had a Facebook comment conversation with Wilson Cruz once. As I have
nice.
Bit of a random segue, but I have a friend here in Melbourne who's from LA originally, and he saw me I posted a photo from Star Trek Las Vegas from a few years ago with me standing next to Wilson Cruz. And so this friend of mine in Melbourne tagged Wilson Cruz's personal Facebook account and said, "Oh, Wilson, you know my friend Davey." And he was like, "Oh yeah, hey, the guy in the green paint, rah rah," because I always did the Orion costume, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, so good to see you," blah blah blah. We had this little conversation, and it was really cute because he remembered what we talked about because he asked me how long it took to get the green paint off in person, and then he asked me again in the Facebook comments and was like, "Oh, you were so confident you were going to get it off so quickly, but it took hours." But yeah, super cute. So I feel like maybe I have a chance of like, maybe I'll go back and find that conversation and be like, "Hey, Wilson, hey, Bean, I'm doing this show now. Would you like to be on it?"
Yeah, I mean, that's a great connection that you have. Yeah, we live in the same city with him, and we're not going to,
Well, yeah, that's right. He lives like probably like 2 miles from us, like over the water. And yeah, it's like, whatever. Yeah. I saw him once on the street. and I was about to like shout his name, but I decided not to. I should have just introduced myself.
You should have, yes.
Yeah, but that's not my MO. I don't like go up and talk to randos.
No, you don't talk to any randos whatsoever.
No. That's not my jam. I don't even like talking to people.
That's not your... Yes. Yeah. Your tolerance of people is minimal.
Yeah. And what about the Wilson Cruise about? Like, we have nothing in common other than, like, Star Trek, I guess.
Yeah. You forget those sometimes, especially when you talk to them at conventions. It's like, oh, yeah, this is just your job. Like, you're not actually Dr. Culper.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I don't know nothing about him. Yeah. And I'm sure we have very little in common, other than the fact that we both live in New York. So, DVD.
We'll see. I feel like he would be the one most likely to do it. Like, if you look at maybe like in the cast of Discovery, or even just, the actors who are in Star Trek today who don't rely on conventions as an income stream... He'd be the one most likely to do something, because especially for a podcast like yours, because he's such a fabulous member of the LGBT community. He's so passionate about all that kind of stuff and bringing that voice to Star Trek. But anyway, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan too, Mike.
All right, well that's good to hear. So, I'll come back and be on your podcast when you have him, so that we make that connection.
Hashtag 2023 goals, basically.
There we go.
Yeah, we're all just going to pass Wilson Cruise around.
Yeah, so that'd be great. I mean, he's not, he's back in New York. He's done with Star Trek, with Discovery season 5 now. So, speaking of that, Davey, what are you looking forward to this year in Star Trek?
That is a fabulous question, and it's a tricky one to answer because we are going to be so spoiled this year. And I think it's different this year because we were quite spoiled last year, but this year we know that Strange New Worlds is going to be good. We know that Prodigy is going to be good. We all hope that Discovery will get a bit better.
Don't get me started, Davey. Don't get me started.
Let me mute Johnson for this part of the conversation, okay?
Oh, God. Don't get me started.
Yeah. Look, I think we've had a bit of a turning point in New Trek. Like, I've always loved it no matter what. Like, I've always had my gripes with Star Trek across the whole thing. But I think with the introduction of Strange New Worlds and what I hope they're going to do right with Picard season 3, I think we've really it's really hit its stride now. The only thing I worry about is any sort of like franchise fatigue maybe settling in, because you look at things like, I think even like Star Wars and Marvel, RuPaul's Drag Race, apparently a new season of that started. God, I don't want to watch that shit anymore.
I've never been a RuPaul fan. Wait, Mike, have you ever watched RuPaul?
No, I have not.
Not
a RuPaul fan.
We're bad gays, I guess. Yeah, we haven't really gotten on board that wagon.
I got into it, I think, because of a boyfriend at the time, and around about like season 8 or 9, and became like obsessed with it. And then I think it was a very social thing for me. Used to go to the bars and watch it, and then the pandemic hit, and I was like, "Oh, this is really boring to watch by myself." And then, kind of got over it. But anyway, I didn't really kind of succinctly answer your question though about what I'm looking forward to. Like, I think all of it really. I think the specific things I'm really looking forward to more of are more Strange New Worlds and probably more Lower Decks. I love Lower Decks so much. It's become my new background show. I reckon I've rewatched every episode a dozen times.
Oh, nice. Wow. Yeah. I agree with you 100. I think Jessa does too. We're very excited about Strange New World season 2. I think that's going to be phenomenal. And we get Lower Decks in season 2 as well. Connie and Jack both playing. Is it Jack Quaid or is that Jack his dad's name?
Jack Quaid.
Quimler. We're gonna get them in Strange New World, so that's really gonna be fun to see how they work that in. Like what kind of happens.
Well, I was thinking about that. I mean, because the voice cast look a lot like their animated characters. So I wonder if they could just have them on live action and, give him some purple hair and
Yeah.
that's it.
Jack Quaid showed up in like his Boimler cosplay when we were in Chicago,
Chicago,
whatever.
Yeah.
The purple hair was like a little. It didn't look good, but I'm sure the real costume department can do something better. But they do though. They do have that vibe that in terms of the actors and their characters. So I feel it'll work.
Yeah, it should be fun as long as it's not like, I don't know. I don't want to see like a Who Framed Roger Rabbit kind of like animated live action kind of thing. I feel like it would just be a bit too silly. But look, I have faith in both the showrunners of Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks to do it in a clever and fun way.
Yeah.
And the thing about Strange New Worlds is that because it's episodic, if there is one episode that isn't amazing, it's not like, oh my God, the whole season is terrible. That's a good thing. Like, for example, last season of Lower Decks, the peanut hamper episode was very divisive. Frank hated it. I actually really liked it. But it didn't ruin the whole season for Mike. Like, you know what I mean? It's not because
it did not.
They can do one-offs like that might miss the mark for some people, but it doesn't ruin the entire show for them. So that's what, even if that episode is like, we can at least say, oh, they tried something different, it didn't quite land, and it's okay. If it does end up that way, who knows? So
yeah. Well, because they've got to that point now where they're going to do these little sequel episodes, I guess. So why not experiment with the format? So, I mean, for every peanut hamper, what was it called? A mathematically perfect redemption. For every one of those, we get another, Rise of Vindicta episode, which are some of my favorites. I hope there's more of those.
Yes. Yeah. What do we must be up to what? Voyage Home now, and maybe even some Final Frontier references, maybe even our favorite or my second favorite, but some Undiscovered Country in there. That would be really cool. To see
more Undiscovered Country references.
Yeah. So Davey, how did your Star Trek fandoms begin? Like, what was your entry into the whole franchise?
So people always laugh when I tell them the first ever episode of Star Trek I watched was Shore Leave from TOS season 1. And it was kind of my mother who encouraged me to watch it. My mum is a huge Star Trek fan. She watched it when it was first on TV, back in the 60s. And she had started watching The Next Generation as well. But we were out one day at a store called Crazy Prices, which is, I think you might, we call them $2 shops. I don't know what you would call them, maybe like dime stores or something like that. Everything's a bargain there and it's all very cheaply made. And there was this bargain bin of VHS cassettes, old Western movies that no one remembers, all very bootleg. And there was a few cassettes which were, Star Trek classic episodes, just $5 for the cassette, a single episode of the original series. And I sort of remember picking it up, and the Enterprise was on the front, and I kind of knew what it was. I was only about 7 or 8, and my mother was just like, "Oh, I love that show. I think you'd really like it. Do you want me to buy you this cassette?" And so she did, and I took it home. And Shore Leave is not the best episode, but I was still just something captured my attention, and I very distinctly remember the Enterprise on the front cover. I just remember looking at it going, wow, what is that? That is like, and the love began there. And look, it was very hard to be a Star Trek fan in Australia at that time. And network television here was not very good at broadcasting it. It was always on late at night because it was the only show that would get ratings at that time. So Mum used to have to stay up and record it for me. So I used to go into the local, it was called Video Easy, like a Blockbuster, and they had like random cassettes from TNG in the original, and I'd just go out and hire them over, and I watched so much of it out of order as a kid, but just was obsessed, and I would find my favorite episodes and rent them out just week on week on week on week on week. But yeah, that's how it all began.
Awesome. Wow, that's really cool. When did you start watching it, or when did Australia start maybe more live broadcasts that were more attainable for you? Like what show or?
Never.
Oh, never. Oh, never.
No.
Oh, wow.
Not until Netflix started getting Discovery day on day with.
What?
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. So, because it's really weird. It would be available on home video,
Right.
before the TV stations here would air them. So so Voyager and DS9 I watched mostly in order because the video rental store near my house got 2 new cassettes, so 2 new volumes it was like the last Thursday of every month. And they'd only ever get 1 copy of them, and I would run like I was a chubby little kid, but man, was I like an Olympic sprinter after school to get to that store on the last Thursday to hire those out. So that's, and with when TNG, when I first got into it, Mum used to stay up because it was on at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So Mum would stay up and record it for me, and I would get up really early and watch it before school the next day.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So who would you say was your first captain or your favorite captain then?
Look, very much Picard has always been my captain. So, TNG was the series that was kind of like my first love. And, I actually got asked that question in a job interview once where they were trying to get, do a cultural fit, get to know me. And I talked about my love of Star Trek. And he's like, oh, are you more a Picard or a Kirk fan? He's like, oh, why Picard? And, for a bit of corporate guff, I was like, oh, well, because, he's more collaborative and everyone's involved in the decision. And that's my leadership style.
Fantastic.
Relevant.
Pike. Yeah. Pike's becoming the new favorite, though. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. He's sort of the 2022 version of Picard in a lot of ways. Sort of a kind of a combination of Kirk and Picard, really. Like, does the action, but also is like has family dinners and things like that. Yeah,
and he's not bad to look at. So
he is not. Yeah, no,
such a handsome
not at
man.
all. Yeah,
I like to sort of think of. I sort of describe Pike as being like what modern, cisgendered white men can be as leaders in this day and age, right? Like there's none of the like macho. I mean, he's still the hero of the show, and he still has a certain air of masculinity about him, but he's so inclusive and he uses correct pronouns without actually having to think about it. And
right,
everyone's loved and involved. And he's hot. He's just so hot. But anyway.
God. Even when he was older in the finale, in the Admiral Reds from Wrath of Khan, looked amazing.
So good. Yeah.
Right. He looked really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a story, Grandpa Pike. Love it. Yeah.
Yeah, right? Man. Yeah, definitely. He's definitely one of our favorites for sure. Well, cool. Let's transition a little bit because this past week we celebrated the 30th anniversary of Deep Space Nine, and
which is apparently also my birthday, which I just learned today. I was 2 years old when I found out that Emissary apparently premiered on January 3rd. I had no idea. So thank you, Mike, for educating me.
You're welcome. Yeah. So 30 years ago, 1993, Emissary, and Davey, you and I were chatting because we both watched The Emissary on the anniversary.
The two of you?
Yeah. Well, not together. Separately. I saw. We didn't do a group watch or anything like that, where you weren't invited. You were actually at your birthday dinner.
Okay.
So there was that. Yes. So we'll start with you, Davey. Thoughts on the 30th anniversary? Where do you feel like DS9 sits for you in the Star Trek?
Where were you 30 years ago?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think everyone can see that Deep Space Nine has found its audience in the modern era, and it's a true testament to how ahead of its time it was. The real sort of black sheep of the franchise at the time that not even Berman or anything wanted anything to do with, which is why Ira Stephen Berg got away with so much that because they weren't really paying attention. So good,
honestly.
Yeah. And look, I loved it at the time. Given what I was saying before, it was very tricky for me to watch until I was able to sort of start getting those cassettes in order. But you mentioned, where was I 30 years ago when it came out? So, funnily enough, again, I watched Emissary on a VHS cassette that I had to rent out, but I didn't know it was a new series because the rental store had a few copies of Emissary come out and then nothing for like a year. So, and I bought they eventually put it up for sale as like a X rental copy, and I bought it and took it home and I just thought it was like some telly movie that they made. And I watched it over and over and over again. And then almost a year later, I remember, I think it was the Q episode from season 1 came out. I saw that somewhere and I was like, wait, hang on, this is a whole show? My mind was blown. But yeah, I distinctly remember, I reckon I fell in love with it at the beginning of season 2 when they were so bold to do a 3-part episode. Mm-hmm. I was like, this is amazing. And I was sold on the whole idea of stories that continued outside of just the self-contained episode, which was always its charm, even if it was tricky for people to consume at the time.
Yeah. Johnson, what are some of your thoughts on the 30th anniversary? Where were you when
Where
it
was
started?
I? Okay, so I was 11. Correct. You got that? No,
right.
wait.
That's enough out of you. Thank you. We're good. Thank you.
No,
it would have been your birthday, so you would have been 11.
Yeah, 11. I was like, wait, what age was I? Yes, so I was 11. And I did watch the premiere. I did watch the premiere. I remember watching it when it came out. But I don't think I didn't really connect with Deep Space Nine until a little bit later. Because it was not immediately compelling to me. First of all, I think that, it was a pretty adult show, but then also it's everything's happening on a space station. And I think that for me, being an 11-year-old, it wasn't. For me, it didn't really capture my imagination like TNG did. I got into TNG around season 3, so actually around that time, I would say, a little bit earlier, in 91, 92. But, TNG is they're exploring space. They're meeting new aliens versus they're on a space station and they're waiting for things to happen to them or waiting for things to come to them, at least in the first 2 seasons. So I didn't really get into it. I think what actually got me more into it was around season 3, especially when Worf was introduced. Around that time, that's where I started paying more attention to DS9. And by that time, things with the Dominion were in full swing, yada, yada, yada. So there was a lot more happening. I think season 1, had some really good episodes, but it's also the most compelling episode is Duet, which is a very talky episode. And for 11-year-old, it's what the fuck is happening? It's, it's not and a lot of it's about the Bajoran religion and politics. And it's really heavy stuff. And I don't think, to be honest, at that age, it wasn't something I latched onto. I think obviously now, I'm very different and it's I love that shit. But for 11-year-old Johnson, it wasn't quite like, it didn't like immediately like capture me, Obviously I can now say that DS9 is my favorite series in retrospect, but I would say especially the first 2 seasons, like, it was a little slow sometimes. It was a little more ponderous, and is an adjective I would use. There's a lot of talking. It just wasn't at that time for me, like, it immediately captured my imagination,
So adult, wasn't it? Like, when you go back and watch it, like, especially like Duet, like, yeah, everyone's like, oh, it's the best episode of season 1, and I'm like, I would not have understood why that was so gripping when I was that age as well.
No. What about you, Mike?
I was home from college break. I think that was my sophomore year. And so I watched the first episode at home, and then had to figure out a way at college how to continue watching it. But I really loved it from the start. I loved the cast. I loved the tie-in to Wolf 359 right from the beginning. And Davey, when you said it was sort of like a movie, rewatching it, I've rewatched it recently because since we were on the Treksperts Quiz, I have started my DS9 rewatch, and I am now halfway through season 2. And I have to say that there was only one episode in season 1 where I felt like, oh, I could probably skip this. It's not that, big of a deal. It's not that, and it was actually the storyteller, which really wasn't like super, critical. Other than what I'm finding most fascinating watching it now is just the evolution of things. Like in season 2, you start hearing about the Dominion and rules of acquisition. And then in another episode, a couple episodes later, I forget the name of it. But you also see the evolution of like Bashir and O'Brien's relationship, like how they just couldn't stand each other at the beginning. And I, as you both know, like Terry Farrell as Jadzia Dax was by far my favorite on this show.
Yes.
I just loved.
Didn't pick up on that at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she was great. But going back and rewatching it now, like I'm just really just loving it again. Like there is so much to love about the depth of characters. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of mature themes, and there's a bit of gray area and darkness that you wouldn't have seen on Next Generation. Like Next Generation was obviously very moralistic and very like, always keep to the good side. But Odo and being, Odo's story and how he envisions law and all of that is really, interesting. And a lot of it ties into today a lot more than I realized. Like it's still very relevant today. And like things like in season 2, there's this episode called Cardassians, which is all about the orphans left behind. And that's really resonates for me right now as we, my partner Dennis and I go through the adoption process and all of that. So it's just all these things that are kind of, it's just so many layers and so many great characters. And I'm really noticing the relationship between Jake and Ben and just how much I actually noticed it the other day. They say "I love you" to each other, which is just an amazing thing that you wouldn't have seen on any other show. So it definitely remains my favorite, and it's just such a great show, and I'm really excited to. It's almost like I didn't rewatch it during the pandemic, and it's sort of all fresh and new, like in a lot of ways, new to me again, and I'm sort of catching things that I wouldn't normally or don't remember catching before. It just speaks to me now, kind of like it did when it first aired, and when I've watched it, since then. It just continues to speak to me on so many levels, and I just it's such a great show, and I'm so happy that this dark horse back in the day is getting its just desserts now, with so many people coming to it Obviously, it was early serialized television. Like most shows didn't do these serialized storylines. So, yeah, and it's just great all around. So, and the cast is fabulous, just amazing, all of them.
So I think Mike's angling as well to get re-quizzed on another Deep Space Nine topic, because I think he's dropped into conversations with me on social media many times, like, "Oh, I'm rewatching it now after the quiz. I'm rewatching it now. If you want to quiz me? Yeah, if you want to quiz me again, you can. It's okay."
That's funny. I mean, I should go back and listen to the season 2 quiz that you did. But once I finish it, I will.
Hard.
So hard. But Kelvin, who was on that episode, still holds the high score. He obliterated that quiz as much as he obliterated Christos in that quiz.
No, I was very impressed. Like, he just knew facts.
Yeah. By the way, Kelvin did send us a message on social and said congratulations to you, Johnson. So, but his high score, high score does continue to reign. And when he first messaged us, I was like, "Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about your high score with us. We're not going to be in the tournament of champions."
No,
but it was, and I think the quiz really helped me remember and give me a reason to go back and just rewatch it, especially since I've watched the premiere now twice within the last month, and Jadzia being 28 and Bashir being 27 is killing me every time. So the fact that I thought she was 29 is killing me. But anyway, so there's a little bit about any other thoughts, guys, on DS9 and its anniversary?
No, I should probably rewatch it again. I did my rewatch over the pandemic, but that already feels like forever ago. I did my over the pandemic. I rewatched all DS9 and Voyager over the pandemic, and then TNG's select episodes or something. It was great. Oh my god, what time! Yeah. I kind of miss those days where I had nothing to do, so I just rewatch Star Trek, because you can't do anything social. I don't know.
Yeah.
Basically.
I would say
and now I'm real busy socially, so no time.
I would say if you are doing a rewatch, Christos, who was on that season 2 quiz, said that and a lot of people have said that they start their rewatches around season 4 or when Worf joins, because, Way of the Warrior, such a fantastic, movie length episode. But I actually really suggest, if you are going to skip season 1, by all means, skip season 1. You really can. But I would say start with season 2, because whilst there's still a lot more standalone in it, there's so much fabulous foreshadowing and the beginning of some of those series-long relationships, like Bashir and O'Brien, and even Jadzia and Kira, the friendship that they had, and my favorite relationship on the show is actually Quark and Odo. That odd little I don't know. It's so brilliantly written, but so beautifully performed by the two actors. When you watch that relationship evolve, and how Quark shows up at the final episode and holds a drink up and is like, "That man's gonna miss me. It was written all over his back."
Yes,
it's perfect.
Yeah,
so perfect.
I would agree with you. Season 2 is a great place to start. Although I really feel like season 1 is also it's a shorter season. It's only 20 episodes. And you could probably, ask anyone, and get it down to 10, season 1 episodes that are really worth your time, because you have the Grand Nagus visiting in the first season, and then he comes back in the second season. So you get to learn a little bit more about Ferengi. I think the evolution of the Ferengi in general, as moving from a nemesis, which they were in Next Generation, to just a very what's the word I want to look?
They're
like
more fleshed out as
fruitful.
like a race.
Yeah, fleshed
Like,
out. Yeah, fleshed out race. Yeah. So
yeah.
So
there's a
very
lot of
cool.
good things in season 1. Like, we meet. There's a lot of the majority religion stuff. Like we met Kai Wynn, Kai Opaka. Like those are really critical introductions. Definitely this season 1 finale was all about, you start to see and understand the machinations of Kai Opaka. Oh, sorry, Kai Wynn. I always mess it up. I literally always mess up the
yes,
Kais.
you do, yeah.
So it's you start to kind of see the seeds they start to plant for her to become who she becomes, Kai Wynn, not Kai
absolutely.
Opaka. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
All right,
cool.
cool. Well, in other current events, we also saw the season finale, the season 1 finale, not season 2 finale of Prodigy, Supernova Parts 1 and 2. So that premiered basically right before the end of 2022. Thought we'd talk about that really quick. I loved the finale. I thought it was amazing. I thought, honestly, the first season of Prodigy was one of the best first seasons of Star Trek ever. I think that it gets, it kind of gets a short end of the stick because it is an animated show that was also meant to be on Nickelodeon and whatever. But honestly, it's I think it's one of the best written shows that's out there, period. And definitely as a Star Trek show, it's done the franchise more than justice when it comes to really representing the characters, the universe, the themes of Star Trek. And the finale was I was texting Mike. I was the finale is amazing. It was just I was the kind of I know they talk about this all the time, but they talk about taking great swings with it, literally they blew up the ship, and how many first seasons do we get where they actually blow up the ship, it's just they do a lot. And they also, even though it's a kids show, quote unquote kids show, they aren't afraid to really pull in the science of it, which I always like about Star Trek. They're, and sometimes it's really complicated, between the time travel shenanigans and then you get really science, Star Trek tech, they're merging the warp bubbles, or hologram Janeway created a wormhole to an alternate future. I'm okay, it's blink if you miss it kind of things that do the kids really even understand what's happening? But they don't kind of talk down to their audience, right? That's one of the things I really like about Prodigy. So anyway, I love the finale. I thought and I predicted to Mike, I was season 2 is going to be Search for Chakotay. It's and that seems to be where we're headed. So, I personally loved it, but we'll love to hear what you two thought about it.
Yeah, you just took the words right out of my mouth in terms of how it doesn't talk down to its audience. They have... I wasn't totally sold on season 1A. I enjoyed it, but for some reason, season 1B felt like it could almost be a whole different season because it just kicked into gear right from the beginning. And I love the fact that they have found this beautiful balance between a show for younger audiences that us seasoned fans can sit back and be ooh, because all the references and, seeing ships like the Defiant and, all those TNG era starships that we've loved and missed seeing on screen. Look, they've really found some magic with the way they've written it, the cast, the characters, and it's so different but so fabulously Star Trek all at the same time. I think with the finale, with what we're talking about at the moment, I loved it. I think it could have been put together as one long episode the premiere was, because I did find the very quick resolution of the big drama, the big battle with the I can't remember what the name of the the red spinny, the actual big bad
the living
ones.
construct weapon, whatever.
The living construct. That's
right. Yes.
The resolution of that just kind of was like, because we had this huge like thing happening at the end of Supernova Part 1, and then it just ended very quickly. But I loved all the epilogue stuff and all that happened afterwards. I thought that was brilliant. I kind of got taken. The momentum got lost, kind of splitting it over the 2 episodes. But still,
if they merged into one, the pacing would have made more sense, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That being said, like that is a very small gripe, and it's on streaming, and I can just easily watch them both back to back now, so that's fine.
Yeah.
With season 2, I was out with some friends yesterday, and one of them said that he thinks that season 2 is just going to be Voyager, the sequel, and I'm like, well, I'm totally here for that and totally fine if that's the way it turns out. Like, yes, please, let's do more of that. But yeah, what about you, Mike?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I rewatched it today, and you're right about the 2-parter. I've been not forcing myself, but I resist the urge to skip the opening credits. Like, I love the music of Prodigy, but I also love the music for Deep Space Nine. And because I'm doing a rewatch, it offers me to skip the end credits and the opening credits all the time, and I still just live through it. But for Supernova Part 2, once 1 was over, I actually skipped the credits to jump right back into Part 2. So I totally agree that I think that, the way that Part 1 ends and 2 kind of jumps on is a bit of a miss, but again, hopefully they'll combine them in the future into one big long episode. I really did enjoy all the Starship action, seeing the Defiant and a few other ships, which I couldn't see. I was watching on my iPad. So it's not like I can see like in great detail. Like, I guess the Sovereign was there, and there were a bunch of other famous starships there. But it was, the one thing that and this is a minor issue with Prodigy, is the jumps in time or logic or space. Sorry, even in space, right? Like suddenly we're in the Alpha Quadrant. Yeah. They're zooming around the whole galaxy, whereas 20 years ago, Voyager is going to take 70 years to get back from the Gamma Quadrant and
Delta Quadrant.
Delta Quadrant. So
get your facts straight, Mike.
Sorry, I'm in Deep Space Nine mode here.
You run a podcast. Right. You should know this stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, and when we get paid $1 million, I'll be much more knowledgeable about this, as I shared on social one time. Just how they suddenly got into the heart of the Federation, and then a month later, after all of this happens, the kids splash down in San Francisco Bay in San Francisco. So those minor things, I think are fine, and only really trouble those of us who are a little bit older and think through these like spatial pieces. But I really I think the finale, both parts, really highlight Janeway and Kate Mulgrew. Like, she is such a star of that finale, and I mean, I love the entire cast. I think they're great, but Johnson and I have talked about this before. This show has really made me come back and love Kate Mulgrew even more. She's just fabulous, amazing at this, and so I'm actually really excited for season 2, because we're going to get like Vice Admiral Janeway all the time now. So, leading this expedition into either the fissure that the protostar created, or whatever they're going to do. And I'm excited to see what ship they're going to be on, because it's clearly not going to be a protostar class.
Everyone thinks it's a Voyager A. It's going to be the Voyager A or something. That's right.
With Captain Harry Kim.
Oh, yes, definitely.
The funny thing about
Someone give Garrett
really
Wang something to do. Like Garrett Wang needs a job.
Well, actually, so there's a rumor out in the internet that he's the captain of the Enterprise F. So,
what? Who started this rumor?
I don't know,
I've not
but
heard this one.
It's you haven't, yeah. So maybe it's a wish, but I think maybe we will see Captain Harry Kim this year.
He hasn't aged
and we
well
may
for an
even
Asian.
see. No, I don't.
He hasn't aged well, did you say?
Just random comment.
Well, this is an age. Yeah. No, we can't say anything because we're
can.
But we'll you can.
Yeah, I can. I don't think he's taking very good care of himself, but that's my opinion. No, I mean someone needs to give him something to do. All he has is like the Delta Flyers podcast, and then he has like he shows at the conventions and stuff like that.
And he always has his own booth at the conventions where he charges like $30 for a selfie or something like that.
Well, he has to make money somehow.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
He's great though. He's great at the conventions. Sorry.
No, he's very friendly.
Yeah, he is very friendly. Yeah. No. I think
I have not gone up to him to tell him that I don't think he's aged well, but like there's always opportunities in the future.
Well, look, you should be like, look, Garrett, I'd like to give you some constructive feedback. From like, one man to another.
Yeah.
Just try not to frown so much.
I'll be somewhere else. I will be somewhere else for this conversation. I will not be there for this. I do not know you. I will not be present.
Well, I'm hoping at least we'll get more Voyager cameos. I mean, come on. We have to.
Sure.
Absolutely. So, and then they need the one thing they need to do for part 2, though. Sorry, not part 2, but season 2 is like explain more Chakotay, because these kids they're like, who's this Chakotay guy? Because they've never really gone into it. Like in season 1, like Chakotay's been brought up a lot, but obviously these kids that may not have seen Voyager have no emotional investment in who Chakotay is, and we haven't been given the shakedown as to why he's even important. So it's like we need a little, the kids need a little bit of that if he's going to be like a centerpiece of season 2. So I'm hoping we get that too. TBD.
Yeah, I think it was a fantastic finale, and looking forward to season 2.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, why don't we drop by Deanna Troy's office?
Come in. Hi.
You got a minute?
Sure.
And for our listeners that may not remember, because it has been a while since we've done this, we have a segment called Dishing with Deanna, which is when we talk just a little bit about what's going on in our lives, what's going on with us. I can give a quick update. Other than trying to survive, I've been seeing this guy. Like we've been on like 4 dates. Just some of them on Hinge or whatever, and he actually like he's a big like just sci-fi fan, but he hasn't seen any of the new Trek. So I'm like, okay, we need to like rectify this. So he signed up for Paramount Plus, and he's already burned through like three seasons of Discovery. So we've been talking about that, and then he got me to watch the Orville because I was like, oh yeah, I started season 1, didn't really like it, and he was like, you got to watch the whole thing. So we've been like just like trading like reactions when it comes to Star Trek and the Orville. So it's been good so far. It's only 4 dates in. It's not a lot. I've been like sick on like 3 of them. So it's like, okay, like I'm not my best, I'm pus and ooze, but not the sexiest look. But still trying my best. So anyway, that's the start of my personal life for 2023. Anyway, just like going some dates, nothing crazy. Just starting off the new year with some action. So like a little bit anyway.
And does he like Discovery though? Like, are you
So
seeing
he,
are you seeing eye to eye on this topic, Johnson? Like,
he hasn't gotten. So I haven't. He hasn't gone to season 4, which again I think is terrible. Season 3's fine. You know, I actually really like Discovery season 1 and 2. 1 I thought was really strong. 2 I really liked with like all the Pike stuff. Season 3 is when it starts to get a little shaky for me, and then season 4 is like just bad. So he hasn't gone to season 4, so I don't want to like, you know, because I'm a very positive person. So I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. So I'm like, oh, yeah, you know. So yeah, you know, positive. So I'm just like saving my commentary until he finishes season 4. And I also told him like, because I was like, if you want, you can watch 2 seasons of Discovery and then start watching Strange New Worlds if you want. But he just wants to like run through the whole thing of Discovery because he's in that groove. So I'm like, all right, you know, do you choose your own adventure. So yeah, so we've been kind of like going back and forth on that. So that's kind of fun. It's nice when, you know, it's nice when I go on dates, and it's always nice when you have things in common, you know. Yeah. Obviously you don't need to end it with someone that like, you know, has all your shared interests, but it's always nice when they're like, at least like kind of interested, or they're like willing to entertain your interests, you know. It kind of like creates a little bit of common ground for you to like just have some banter when you don't have like anything else to talk about, you know. So anyway, so yeah.
Hypothetical then, if season 4 turns out to be his favorite, is it over?
we'll have to like we'll have to go to like couples counseling or something. I don't know. Yeah, we're gonna have to like figure that piece of it out.
I have an issue emerging. Yeah.
Yes.
We'll see.
When he starts to hear you on your soapbox, look out. Oh gosh.
I can't. Yeah.
Oh
it's
gosh.
It's a big soapbox, and I will like get on that soapbox at any point. Yeah.
Yes, you will. But we're gonna avoid that now.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a good segue, Davey. I know you have a partner. His name is Anthony. Would love to know more about your relationship with him. I know he does not watch Star Trek, right? He's not a Trek fan. I remember like it was the first or second episode you had him on. He was scorekeeper, and he was like, he was just like talking like out of his butt. Like I was like, this guy knows nothing. Like how did you guys meet? Was it like, was your like big Star Trek fandom? Was it like interesting for him? Was that a turn off? Like, what was all that like?
Just quickly, sorry, pardon me. You mentioned him being on Treksperts Quiz as the scorekeeper. He is so much fun to have on the show because his total lack of knowledge makes for some very funny banter. The fact that we asked he was in the first episode, and I asked a question about the Cardassians, and you just hear Anthony off to the side go, "Which one of the Kardashians is in Star Trek?" Like, genuinely.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's right. God. Yes.
Even when I was watching Emissary the other day, I'm like, he was in the room and he just goes, "So do you think the Kardashians ever tried to sue them?" And I was like, this was before they were a thing. Okay.
This was 30 years ago. They were half of them didn't exist.
Exactly.
Yes.
Kim hadn't made her sex tape yet, which he then went and didn't realize that was a thing. He went and looked that up, but we won't go into the reaction.
There we go. Go away while I watch this and go find the Cardassian the Cardassian sex tapes.
Oh, Cardassian sex tape. That's the cosplay.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I'm sure it exists somewhere. But Luke, you said, or you asked, you mentioned shared interests. Sorry, and look, I think they're important, but I think it's also nice that we have quite varying interests because it helps us have our own things. But also, I find the fact that he really loves football really fascinating, and he finds it fascinating that I love Star Trek and sci-fi. He doesn't quite get it, but it is what it is. He did try early on. I think when Discovery Season 4 was about to start. I was going to do my usual thing and have all my mates over for a viewing party. And he wanted to be a part of that. He gets FOMO, right? So he was like, all right, I am going to catch up on this show.
Oh,
and I just remember he sent me a video. He searched for Star Trek on Netflix, and this was back when they were all still on there. And he's just gone, I'm so confused. There's so many of them. Which one do I watch? So Star Trek, Voyager, Star Trek. I was just like, just watch Discovery. He got about 3 or 4 episodes into it. He loved Sonequa Martin Green, but you know, when his first question was, why does this guy look different to everyone else in reference to Saru? I was like, oh, babe, I don't think this is for you. I don't think this is for you, I'm afraid. But, you know, look, that's fine. You know, we don't need to like all the same things.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But, yeah, he's amazing. We've been together for about 18 months now. We were kind of a lockdown relationship. So, yeah, I don't know if you know this, but Melbourne was the most lockdown city in the world.
Australia was intense. It was, I remember, like other
Melbourne
than, like,
specifically, yeah.
Oh, really? Melbourne specifically, okay.
Yeah. So we were we spent almost, in terms of days, we spent almost a full year, almost 340 odd days or something like that, locked in strict, what we called stage 4 restrictions, unable to go more than 5 kilometers from your house, curfews from 8 p.m. It was a lot. And we met just before one of those happened. So we met at a nightclub for like one weekend that they were open. And we went on a single date the night before a lockdown was due to start. I had to race home in an Uber because the lockdown started at midnight.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
But then we formed a singles bubble, which we were allowed to do. If you were a single person living by yourself and you had an intimate partner, or you knew another single person living by themselves, for mental health reasons, you could visit that person's house. So we had little date nights at home because you could order food in from fancy restaurants and all this kind of stuff. So look, it was kind of nice. We kind of got to know each other without all the, you know, the fluff of other gay life going on around us. And then the lockdown ended a few months later. Which mind you was like our 5th or 6th lockdown. And we decided to make it official, and now it's 18 months later, and we're talking about probably 2023 is the year we move in together. So we'll see what happens next.
Wow. That's cool. That's a cool story. Yeah, Melbourne I heard was pretty intense, but I didn't realize there were like curfews. Like that's serious.
It was hard. It was a really, like, it's so bizarre to think that those 2 years happened, and we've all emerged a little different and a little broken. And I think we're all learning how to kind of be normal social people again. Still, you know, a good 12 months after the last lockdown ended, but I think we as a community earned our freedom. Melbourne's a very exciting, you know. It's a place that's well known for its food, its bars, its shopping, its nightlife, and all of that took such a hit. And I feel like we've now all partied way too hard because we were so excited to be living our lives again, and now everyone's almost going the other way and like going, could do with a lockdown just to reset. Maybe do a DS9 rewatch. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I love Melbourne. I visited Australia January of 2020.
No way.
So right before things blew up, I did the tourist thing. I just visited Sydney and Melbourne, both amazing cities. And then the world ended 2 months later. So it's like, oh my God. So I just made it. I just made it before like everything shut down. So
similar. I was in San Francisco last week of February, first week of March 2020.
Ooh. Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
I was there for work, and I was staying a few extra weeks, just personal time, visiting some friends of mine that live there. And I cut the trip short because everything was just feeling a little off. Like the toilet paper crisis had started back in Australia
Right.
before it happened in the US. And I just remember racing home, and a week later, boom, things started shutting down. Mandatory hotel quarantines for people coming back into the country, all this kind of stuff. And then, feels like a lifetime ago.
I know. How do you feel about the prospect of living together? Have you done that before with anyone else?
Yeah, so I was with someone in my 20s for about 10 or 11 years. And we lived, and he and I lived together for most of that time. I've lived by myself ever since. But he's here at the moment. Whilst we've been on holidays from work over Christmas and New Year's, he's pretty much lived at my house, and it's cute, right? Like he's a Greek boy, Greek Cypriot, so lived at home with his parents until he was nearly 30. And moved out and bought his own apartment around about the age of 30. And he's lived by himself in this little one-bedroom apartment ever since. And so he's never lived with anyone other than his family. So he's slowly turning my home into a home he will be comfortable to live in. So his own little touches here and there. He's got funny little habits like we need to change the hand towels every day. And funny
what?
Like that.
That's crazy.
Wow.
That's interesting because like I've had roommates and stuff like that, and you have to learn how to compromise, and it's you can't just make it your space. It needs to be co-owned, and there's a lot that you need to do outside your comfort zone. So that's an interesting transition for him if he's only lived at home and that's all he knows, or by himself.
Yeah, but look, I think we enjoy it. I think we've certainly had we've had some moments learning to kind of cohabitate with each other because we both. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he is so entertaining to have around. Like a lot of Greeks has a real flair for the dramatic. Everything's the smallest of things is such a huge deal.
It's the small things that I'm like freaking out. The big things I'm actually like,
yeah. But at the same time, like I've learned to just laugh because it's always hilarious. And he's larger than life personality. And just I think my life would be so boring without him around. I love him to bits.
Oh,
that's nice.
Sweet. Yeah,
very cool.
Well, Mike, how about you? How's your life going?
Life is good. It's funny because hearing all of that again, Davey, reminding me that I moved in 2 weeks before the lockdown happened here.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I moved in February 28th of 2020. And and it was because my roommate who before that was crazy and texted me in the middle of February and said, you need to move out. And it was just a really crazy, he was crazy.
Yeah.
And so, And
I still remember the timing. I remember it was like right before.
Yeah.
Lockdown.
Well, it was right. So it happened right after you guys got back from Mexico. Because that was the four of you went on the trip to Mexico. That was the last trip,
right after Australia, Mexico, and then everything was fine.
Yeah. So that happened right after then. And so that reminded me of all of that. And so no, things are good here. Like we said at the top of the show, I am preparing for a marathon in June, but also Dennis and I are starting a new adoption process with going to South Africa for a child or children. So
that's amazing.
You should tell our listeners and Davey the process. Like it's a process.
It is a process. Yeah, we've been in the adoption process here in the U.S. for 2.5 years, and that has not, obviously we don't have a kid yet, and so we started. Dennis started exploring other options, and we found this agency that helps you adopt from. So there are only roughly 3 countries internationally that allow adoptions for unmarried LGBTQ couples. One is, I want to say, Colombia, South Africa, and then I think Hungary is the third. So very different parts of the world. Dennis has a connection to South Africa. He did medical mission work in Swaziland and South Africa for 3 years before moving back to the US in 2015 or 2016, I think. So there was that connection once he heard that that they allowed adoption to LGBTQ couples. So we started exploring it a while ago. We started exploring it in October, but and then as we got more information, it's a really expensive prospect. Like we're talking $65,000 to $80,000 US.
Wow.
So
Just for adoption. It's
Just
not
for
even
adoption.
like, surrogacy, which is like in that price range. It's like
surrogacy is more expensive, but also that doesn't
depends on where the surrogate's from. But it's in that range.
Sure. Yeah. But and we want an older kid. Like we both will work. Obviously Dennis is a doctor, and I'm an executive assistant, but whatever happens in the future, whatever opportunities, I'll still need to work. So it's not like we need a kid that can go to school. So his shifts are 12 hours, and so on the days that he's working, I will be the primary parent, and so I do have to work, and so they do have to go to school. So we're looking at 4 to 7-year-olds that can go to school. So yeah, so we started that. So the money obviously was a big hiccup, and whether we wanted to go through this whole process, which is like literally an investigation into your entire life, all your relationships, all your past, your family, your every bit of history, plus, FBI level background checks and, all that stuff. So fingerprinting and everything. So it's a really intense process. So we thought about, so I needed more time to think about it. And then over this past month, we've talked to my family a little bit more about it, my sister specifically. And so we're moving forward with it. And so we're starting that process all over. So it's like starting from scratch again, because it's a new agency. It'll be, a home study is slightly different because there are Hague compliances that now, because it's international, need to be followed. And so it's, we're beginning.
And you also you
now.
didn't even touch on the part where you need to stay in South Africa for like 3 months.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. So we will be moving to South Africa for 2 to 3 months when this all kind of comes to
that's like a prerequisite.
Yes. Yeah. You have to go there and live for 2 to 3 months to do all the paperwork and all of the processing and everything. So, so we're both looking at leaves from work and how we're going to manage all of that, and, where Hamish is going to go. Obviously, my sister's already said he's coming there, so that's taken care of, but all these things that need to, and also all that money that we're going to spend on this does not include like transforming this office or a second bedroom into a child's bedroom and getting them closed and all of those things. So it's a huge undertaking.
And is there a box to tick to say that the child must be a Star Trek fan, or?
There is not, but I love Prodigy in this way, that this is a great show to introduce them to. So yes, they will be growing up with a lot of Star Trek and sci-fi fantasy in their life for sure.
Good on you for undertaking it, though. Like, that's. I think that a lot of people probably don't realize, with all the rules around it, that there's so many children around the world who need a good, solid, dependable home, and gay couples are still quite discriminated against in a lot of ways, and can often be the best parents that a child could potentially hope for. And I think going through all of that as well, I mean, what a way to test your resolve in terms of whether this is something that you really, really want to do, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is. And, the number one, it's, every straight couple I've certainly told about this and at different parties or whatnot have said they're, based upon your backgrounds and what the two of you do in your life, like they're blown away that we don't have a kid yet. Like why, and, there's so that, not only is there prejudice on a systematic level, but then all of these child advocates, you don't know what their biases are to certain couples or whatnot. So it's a real challenge. And we do want a kid that's young enough where we can help them get over any trauma and it won't kind of affect them long-term for a long time. As you get older, like 8, 9, 10, things start to like, both of you can probably remember like being 8, 9, 10 in that age, and you remember things a lot more than you would remember like 5, 6, 7. So it's a great age. We want that. We want to be able to be bonded to them and have them bonded to us. And we both really want to be dads. So we're going for it.
So cute. Love it. That's amazing.
Thanks.
Exciting.
Yeah.
So hopefully you'll still have enough time for Star Trek, because taking care of a kid is like a lot.
Yeah.
That's
and
true.
Still
I've watched
for Johnson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Johnson is also a very needy part of my life. If you ever get to see our Slack channel, the amount of questions and the attention that Johnson needs.
Mike, what's going on?
Yeah. What's happening now? Talk to me. Yes. Throughout my days. So yes. Yes, I'll have that. I'll have Johnson, and then I'll have one or two other, smaller humans asking me the same thing. So, well, but I have been watching.
Hopefully they'll be interested enough in you to ask you questions. Kids are.
Yes. Of course. Yeah. But fortunately, right now I watch Deep Space Nine while I'm cooking, so that's the other thing. Or I put it on the treadmill and run and watch Deep Space Nine. I watched Prodigy this time today for running because we were talking about it. But so there'll still be time for Star Trek in my life for sure. But I am excited to kind of share things like Prodigy with kids, and if CBS ever got on the ball about having a Murph plushie, I'm sure that there would be Murph plushies around here. But as we all know, that probably will never happen.
Not yet. Maybe one day.
So that's most. That is a lot. That's why I said like 2023 is a different year for us. So it's a lot. We are looking at a lot changing or happening, and I have to change and adapt as well. And I still have my own goals of running a marathon and things like that. So you got to fit all of this in as well.
Yeah,
so,
it's a lot. Good luck with that.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Yeah, we're excited. Yeah. So.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that does it for this episode. Yeah, Davey, thanks for sharing and for coming on. Really loved having you here.
Where can people find you, Davey? And let's give them all the details on where people can track you down.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess please come and find the show if you haven't heard it. Johnson and Mike were just on it, so it's called the Treksperts Quiz. You can find it literally everywhere that podcasts are available. The show is also across socials. We have a Facebook group called the Treksperts Quiz. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. Probably a little bit more active on the Instagram more than anything else. We've also got a website, trekspertsquiz.com. And you can find my personal Twitter at DingoDave84, which is set to private, so I do suss people out before I let them follow me. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thanks for being here. And before we sign off, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Fansets. Fansets makes amazing pin collectibles, and this month's releases are no different. We have new TNG Klingon communicator pins. We also have Captain Rios from series 1. I don't know. He looks like he's from season 2, but anyway.
Season 1 Picard?
It might be from season 1 Picard. We also have the Orion when Tendi and Mariner do their Orion trip. I think that was season 1, right?
Yeah.
So we have some micro crew pins of them in their Orion get-ups. And also, if you haven't checked out the new Deltas from the TNG era, those are available, but they're sold out right now, or at least the magnetic one is sold out. So the pin is still available. So head on over to fansets.com, put a bunch of pins in your cart, and if you use the words Trek Geeks, all one word, you're going to get 10% off your order. And if your order is over $30, you're going to get free shipping in the US. And we want to thank Fansets for being the premier sponsor of the Trek Geeks podcast network and Deep Space Pride.
Thanks, Fansets. We will also love to hear from you. If you want to reach us on social media, we're on Twitter and Instagram at Deep Space Pride. And you can also reach us via email at deepspacepride@gmail.com. Would love to hear what you're all looking forward to when it comes to Star Trek this year. And if there are any other guests that you want us to have on the show, we'd love to get your thoughts and opinions. So looking forward to hearing from you all.
And one other thing. So 1 week from today, well, today we're recording on a Saturday, but next Saturday, January 14th, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, Trek Talks 2 is happening with a bunch of amazing stars from all across Trek. We're going to be raising money for the Hollywood Food Coalition. And it's going to be 8 hours of interviews and talks with all kinds of stars from all of Star Trek. So head on over to trektalks.net for more details. And that starts at, what time did I say? 1 p.m. So 12:45, the pre-show begins Eastern time, with the interviews beginning at 1 p.m. Next Saturday, or this coming Saturday, January 14th. So hop online and watch that and support Hollywood Food Coalition.
I think I saw that they got Scott Bakula to...
Yes.
Which is a big deal, because he...
That is a huge deal. He does not do conventions. Yeah. He does not, so that's huge.
These things, so...
Mm-hmm. And our favorite daddy, Anson, is going to be there as well. So
Daddy.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. No,
so,
they got a lot of stars lined up, so it'll be cool.
Yeah, I've seen that. That looks like fun.
Yeah, so it's going to be 8 hours of interviews and talks. So, check it out. And also support Hollywood Food Coalition, which does amazing work in the LA area.
Yeah, John Billingsley does a lot with them. So
he does, yeah. He's on the board. And there's a lot of Star Trek connections. David Livingston's on the board as well. He's a famous director from the Berman era of Star Trek. So there's a lot of great connections. So, and they do great work. So check that out.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Davey, for hopping on today. Thanks to our listeners, and we'll be talking soon.
Yeah. Hope your 2023 is off to a great start, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Deep Space Pride is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Coconut.